Most women feel like they have to reinvent their entire life. Maybe you've been feeling it for a while now. It's that low hum or low nagging feeling that something's off, but you can't quite pinpoint exactly what it is, but everything in you says something is off. And the louder it gets, the more your brain wants to come to drastic conclusions. Let's get out of there. Let's leave. Let's quit. Let's shut it all down. Burn it all down. Start all over. We need to change everything. But what I want to do today is slow that down. Okay? Slow your roll. Take a breath. Step back for a minute. And because we've been ideally carrying a lot of things for a very long time, you get into this rote memorization of actions, and sometimes that can cause the wrong decisions to be made, or it can also cause you to view something as one way when you should really, in your sort of normal state, see it in a different manner. It's really about you just being exhausted. Your mind is exhausted. You could physically be exhausted as well. You can even be spiritually exhausted, and we don't want to make decisions in those tired states. So today I want to share, like, basically not every season calls for an entire overhaul. Stop reinventing when you need to be realigning, maybe. Anyway, I'm Takia. Welcome to the channel. This is for women that are pretty much just tired of running on empty, ready to make some pivots in life, and we're here to support one another. Let's get into today's video. So what if you're reading the situation wrong? I want to say this to you all gently, but clearly. Most women feel like they have to reinvent their entire life, add in new routines, new structures, everything, right? And I honestly understand it. It makes sense. It's very attractive to want to just hit the reset button when things are going left and you don't understand why they're going left per se. I think it's a natural human being instinct to want to let me just regroup, to completely clear the slate and start all over again. But when you're overwhelmed and exhausted and low-key resentful even, the solution feels like it's the best thing under the sun. Because what you want to do is you want to get away from that uncertainty and you want to get to something that you can control. You want to match that same energy, that the pain, you want to match that with something that will completely wipe it out in your mind. A dramatic problem needs a dramatic solution, right? Maybe. But most of the time, it's not actually what's needed, if we're being honest with ourselves. So what if you're reading the situation wrong? Maybe it's not about that you don't like your life, meaning like you hate your life to the point where you need a reinvention. Maybe it's just how you've been living within it, the different roles that we have and we hold. Maybe we're not, what's the word? We're not content, maybe, or we're just not satisfied with the how of the living within that life. Because many women that I talk to, family, friends, co-workers, etc., it's never that message of, oh, I hate my life. No, what in the world? You don't hate that you have a family or that you have a spouse or that you have to be dependable. You do dislike the idea of not having the time for yourself, or the amount of time that you would like to dedicate towards yourself. Because many of us, we want to be that person, that go-to person per se, because you want to feel needed, you want to feel valuable, you want to provide value to the world. But you also know that there's going to be a time period where you need to make sure that you're good, make sure that you're at to the optimum level that is necessary for you to continue all these wonderful things that you really want to do. But somewhere along the line, you just kept going and going without stopping and registering. And then you just got carried away. You know, you held everything. You got to do it. It's got to be you. You need to be the one to check on it. All those things. And it just became too heavy over time. And now you're tired. Now you're exhausted. Now you're spent. And you don't have any reserves left to do the things that will bring you fulfillment in your life. Let's use another analogy. Think about this like a garden. If you had a garden and you noticed that there were weeds coming in, would you rip everything out and start all over again, reseeding everything, cultivating, etc.? No, you wouldn't. You would take the weeds out. You would pay attention to how you're watering, How's the food being intaken? Is there enough sunshine? Is there too much sunshine? You would start to analyze what's happening that would allow weeds to invade the space. Think of your life in the same manner. It doesn't require a complete overhaul each and every time. And we have to stop trying to just ease the pain, erase the pain or the discomfort by doing that. When you can ask yourself is, or think about, maybe my life isn't requiring me to be a completely different person. Maybe it's just requiring me to figure out what doesn't fit inside of it anymore. Okay, so start asking yourself, what are you tolerating that you don't have to? What are you tolerating that you shouldn't? Okay, so how do we tell the difference? It's because before you start changing everything, you should probably ask yourself what actually changed. Pinpoint some of the ways that you notice different changes. And if you still come to the conclusion that you need a completely different life, okay, then that means every solution is going to need to be, or every solution is going to sound dramatic. Before you start knocking down the walls and shutting things off, we should probably check where maybe we could just make some adjustments, because reinvention and realignment aren't the same thing. Reinvention says something big has shifted. Realignment is more so what's out of place. One changes the direction completely almost, and the other just makes sort of course correction. Both may be necessary at different times in your life. The question leads you to ask yourself, what season are you in, and then pick the correct solution for that season. And if you can, what you want to do is at least decrease some of the pressure so that you can come to the correct conclusion. That's the point here. That's the point with the slow down, step back, so that we can sort of see everything in a more calmer state, so that the decisions that we made are actually based on what we need and not on just the emotional state that we're in. So when we talk about misalignment, I think it's important that I convey, at least from what my understanding of realignment would be, or alignment. And that way you can see the difference between that and reinvention. So realignment is ongoing. This is ongoing work in your life. We're talking about your habits, your boundaries, your relationships. Just bringing back a harmony or homeostasis in your life. And with that includes your values, your faith, just, what you deem to be true within yourself. And it's not, I'll tell you what it's not becoming someone totally new. It's not being completely transformed. It's returning to who you've always been, that maybe you just got out of touch with that. And I think I lean toward realignment more than reinvention, because for me, reinvention adds unnecessary pressures. And if you're already feeling pressured, overwhelmed, overextended, you don't need more. So that's why I tend to, if I'm talking with someone, give it advice of sort of realigning with what your natural state is. Just getting back in order, in harmony with that natural space where you've always been. But because of pressure and fear and other people's expectations, just pulled you in totally different directions. And we're cognizant and we're not cognizant of those times when we're being pulled. It's just life. Sometimes you're such in the routine of surviving the day, the week, the month, the year, that you don't step back, slow it down, and say, what's going on? I don't feel balanced right now. What can I do to help myself get back in balance? In the Quran it says, indeed, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change first what's within themselves. So there's a duality here. There's a part that you have to take. And that's important for us. We do have a part in that rebalancing of sorts. And then we do our part, understand that God has already said He's going to bring you back to balance. He's going to make sure you're balanced, but he wants to see that you want this also. So that's comforting to know that you're not in that rebalancing, realignment by yourself. You know, you never were. You never were. I mentioned, how the pressure can sort of push us off of that balanced path. Let's talk a little bit more about that, because pressure can make any rough time period feel that much worse. It can make frustration feel permanent. It can make resentment feel so concrete. It'll make you feel like you can't get away from it. Like, maybe I just need to disappear for a while. I need to just go off and just completely withdraw myself from that situation. And if you are usually one of the dependable ones in your family, the one people call, the one people's advice they seek, and over time, of course, that pressure becomes normal because you'll normalize it. You're normalizing it because your body wants to get to a state of balance. But the reality is you were trying to balance the wrong things. And so you normalized a way of life that was slowly just breaking you down. So you were trying to do one thing, but the thing that you were doing was slowly further breaking you down. Oh, until you one day realize you've just been surviving your life. And then you're like, what in the world was I doing? Like, where did the time go? This is where it can get complicated. Because you now have to contemplate, okay, what roles am I holding? Being needed and being valued, not the same thing. You have to start contemplating things like that, because somewhere we thought that being needed was the same thing as being valued. Let's take the workplace, for example. There's a project that needs people to work on it. Okay, all right, you have a skill set. Okay, great. They need you. They need you as a person to work your part to help finish this project. It doesn't mean that they value the skills that you have or the skills that were needed to be a part of this project. They just know that they need a person that's capable of doing the job. That's a hard place to live in when you haven't quite established within yourself the distinction between those two. Okay, so somewhere along, when we're talking about misalignment, or when women are not hating their lives, or women are not hating their lives, but just dislike how the roles within those lives have morphed into something else. Let me give you some examples, and I wrote them down, okay, because I wasn't going to be able to remember this. So sometimes when we're being helpful, that can turn into over-functioning, okay, where to the point where you're volunteering your help when no one needed it per se, meaning it's really not needed. But you need to be in the space because you feel that being in the space would give a better outcome. But you can easily delegate this, right? Number 2 would be being patient, and how that becomes silent suffering. Okay, so for example, you think you're being patient with just how things are operating, maybe at work, right? And you're like, okay, I'm not going to say anything right now, or I'm not going to speak out against this. I'm not going to raise this concern. But all the while, you are now suffering within those conditions. Or you're being patient and you don't leave when you're supposed to leave. You're now maybe subjecting yourself to more of that misbehavior or mistreatment, whatever the case is that, was causing some sort of discomfort at your workplace, for the example. Thirdly, when you're being supportive, but it becomes self-erasure. You're giving and giving and giving, and you're not fueling the giver, okay? You're just pouring out. And then lastly, keeping the peace became losing your voice. What does that mean? You're constantly, and this one can go back to the example at the job, but you can use it for work, at home as well. But you're keeping the peace, and losing your voice means you'd rather just go along with it because you don't want to start something. You don't want to begin something where you're going to have to now maybe bring some truths to light, cause more awareness, and sometimes more awareness is going to cause more heart. So instead of saying, hey, no, I'd rather not do that, or I would prefer this, you just go along with it because everyone is used to the way it is. And you don't even want to have to go through the headache of explaining and or dealing with the responses, dealing with how people look at you afterwards, any of those things. So those are just some quick examples of how the roles can be distorted, and Faith says something different about that. Like I mentioned to you about how the condition of a people will not be changed until they first change what was within themselves. What it's saying to you is that maybe your life doesn't need a complete demolition. Like, don't bring in the trucks just yet. Maybe it just needs your attention. Before you reinvent yourself, ask yourself, do I even like myself? Basic, simple. Am I unhappy with who I am? Am I tired of how I've been living? What am I tolerating that I shouldn't, as I just mentioned? What am I tolerating that I don't have to? What am I avoiding? Is there anything in my life right now that I'm avoiding facing, making a decision on, eliminating? And if some of the pressure that I'm experiencing disappeared tomorrow, would I still want to do a complete overhaul? If some of the pressure was relieved tomorrow, what are some things that would still need to change? Sit with that for a while and really answer that honestly from the depths of yourself. Because this is about you. It's not about anyone else. It's not a performance. This is about your life and enjoying the blessing of a life that you have been given. Just sit and pay attention. Really listen to yourself. And okay, so you might say, my life is so busy, so convoluted, I don't have time to sit. Yes, you do. We make decisions and we decide what we have time for and what we don't. If you have to break up your time throughout the day to get to the conclusions that you need to, understand that this investment in your time now is the investment of the enjoyment of the quality of life that you're trying to have, to seek, to be a part of, to experience long term. The bottom line of today's video is that you don't always need to burn down your life in order to discover what's been going on. You might just need to stop abandoning the need to nurture yourself. You know, you might need to stop just putting everything ahead of your health, mentally, physically, spiritually. Because again, if you are not in a healthy space, how are you going to contribute to society effectively? Realignment is so much quieter and, I don't know, maybe not the correct word, but I want to say smoother than having to reinvent. Reinvention, think of the word invention. Invention means you're creating something new that didn't exist in some capacity. So if you're reinventing, you're recreating something new. There's a lot with that. So before we go through all of that drama, pick something a little bit steadier, something that you can work on throughout the time period. And honestly, I think realignment lasts a lot longer than reinvention. And I'm sure there are quite a bit of opinions on the internet, and it's something that, you know, maybe we can get into one day. But for now, just think about seeking the clarity, being courageous, willing to keep correcting, willing to keep reassessing, you know, the garden, right? Check my water levels. Let me check the soil conditions. Let me check the environment. Is it conducive to nurture this plant, this growth? That's what we do here. So you're not alone. You can reach out, check out a couple of videos, you know, and choose what you need. Pick the vegetables that you need, you know. Pass them along, share them, so we can continue to heal ourselves in this such a grind, busy, day-to-day survival structured world. Because the natural isn't like that, but the way this world was structured, this society, was structured. Check out these videos and let's continue the conversation.